There's gonna be a giant shadow right here. I can't help it, I can't help it. We're just gonna have to ignore it for this video. But I have another scary story for you guys. And again, it is 11 o'clock at night, and I'm doing this at the worst possible time ever. And I haven't had any Diet Coke today, and I have a huge headache, so I'm just struggling. I have found another story myself. Like I said in my last video, I've been binge reading no sleep stories when I'm bored. And so I literally have at least 10 tabs open right now of stories that I want to read. But keep sending me stories, guys. I'm not saying don't send me stories. I love it when you guys send me them. I just found a lot. So I'm gonna read some of the ones that I found just to get them out of my system, and then we'll kind of put some of your guys' in with mine, and we'll just kind of do something on it. But I'm going to put the link to the story. It was written by a girl named Melissa who actually watches my videos. I was actually really surprised to hear that. I emailed her to ask her if it was okay if I read the story, and she was like, holy shit, I know you. And I was like, holy shit, what's that? So I'm going to put a link to her Reddit and then a link to the story as well, so you guys should go check out some more of her stories. And this one is called Someone is Stalking Me and Slowly Killing Everyone I Love. To begin, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a 20-year-old college dropout. I work at a retail store not far from my home, and I live with my mother and stepfather in a small town outside of London, Ontario. My father lives in the town too, but I don't see him often because he works late, but he's still a big part of my life. I used to live a normal life. I hung out with my friends and my boyfriend, I went to work, and I didn't do much else. But this normal life would soon slip out of my grasp. My daily routine involved waking up, going to work, then coming home and laying on my couch in the living room until 3 a.m. watching videos online and reading other no-sleep stories. And if I didn't work, I would do the same. Most of the time my boyfriend would be with me during the time I wasn't at work. I was coming home from work on the bus one day when I noticed a man on the bus wearing all dark clothing with his hood up and one of those ski-like masks covering his face. Now, this wouldn't seem odd if it was winter, considering this is Canada, but this was in the middle of June when days reached 30 degrees. It was strange, but I quickly brushed it off. Once I got off the bus, I walked home. It was about a 5-minute walk away, and once I got home, I did my usual thing. Took off my makeup, put on comfy clothes, and laid down to watch videos. But I quickly realized there was someone standing at the end of my front lawn, facing towards my house. I jumped. I was home alone, so I was very uneasy to begin with, because I just don't like being alone. I slowly walked up to the giant living room window that went ceiling to floor and covered the whole wall. I tried to catch a glimpse of the person's face, but because I was too scared to move the curtains, I could only make out a black figure. I decided to walk around to my front door because there was a small window next to it that I would feel better looking out of once I got there. There was nothing, no one, just the empty street. I started to panic. I wasn't sure who it was, and I didn't know what they wanted or what they were doing, but I decided to forget about it. I just went back to lying on the couch and watching videos. It was about 2 hours later when I finally decided to go outside and have a smoke. This put the time at about 9 p.m., so it was dark outside, and my backyard got super eerie at night because we had a large backyard that was lined with trees. As I was finishing up my smoke, I heard a ruffling noise in the trees. Now this happens a lot since we live in a foresty area. There's a lot of wildlife, but this was louder than usual, so it put me on edge. I decided to get up and turn on the outside light, and as I turned it on, my heart sank. I wasn't prepared for what I was about to see. The man that I had saw on the bus was there, standing in the tree line of my backyard with the same dark outfit and ski mask. I screamed, and as I screamed, the lights flickered and then went out. I quickly ran inside and locked the doors and windows. I was shitting my pants. I didn't know what to do. I decided to go down to my basement and into my crawl space. We had turned the crawl space into a kind of game room. We had those big circle chairs and a TV with a bunch of gaming systems. I sat on one of the chairs and just closed my eyes and tried to breathe. I texted my mom telling her what happened, and she told me she was on her way. Once she got here, she hugged me and told me she had called the police and told me to tell her everything, so I did. The police were just a few minutes behind her, so it gave me time to tell her what happened. Once they came in, they asked me the same stuff I told my mom, and then walked around and checked the whole house and backyard. And they found nothing. They left us telling us there was nothing that they could do because they couldn't find anyone or anything, but that we could call them if something came up again. The next few days were normal. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. My mom did stay home when I didn't work and went to work when I did, just to be safe and to make me feel better. It was 5 days after the initial incident when the normality was gone again. I'd gotten home from work at 6 p.m. and my mom worked in the city and was stuck in traffic, so I was home alone for about an hour. I did my usual thing and lied down. Now, from where my couch is, you can see the stairs going up and the stairs going down. We live in a side split, so there are only about 8 stairs both ways. For the upstairs, I could see the hallway and all 4 bedroom doors and the bathroom at the very end. For the basement, I could only see the computer desk with the computer on it. But today, there was something different about it. My stepdad built this computer, and he called it Iron Man. And he had that screensaver on it where the words spin around in the screen, and he had it say Iron Man. But today it had something different. I couldn't make out what it said, So I got up to go downstairs to look at it because I was curious, and I quickly regretted it. When I got close enough to read it, this is when I had completely broke. I started crying and my heart was pounding. On the screen, the words no longer read Iron Man. It now said, "Say goodbye to those you love, Melissa." I collapsed onto the floor screaming and crying. I called my stepdad to make sure he hadn't done this as a joke, and he didn't, and I didn't have time to explain it to him. I quickly hung up and called my mom to tell her to please try and hurry home as quick as she could and that something had happened. When she got in, she found me crumbled into a ball on the floor in front of the computer. She asked me what was wrong but quickly noticed the screensaver as well. She instantly started to weep with me. We called the police and told them what had happened, and they were over in a matter of minutes. I told them everything, and they did the same thing they did last time. They looked around for anyone or anything that could have clues to who did this or if the person was still around, but to my dismay, nothing. They asked me if I had any clues as to if somebody would want to hurt me or my family, and I couldn't even begin to think of somebody who would want to do this. The only lead that we had was that man that I had seen on the bus about a week earlier. This wasn't helpful to them, and there was no way for them to figure out who it was. They told us that they could have a police officer set up outside of our house and keep an eye out, but only at nighttime, as the days were busy. For fuck's sake, I thought, but agreed, as if anything would help. Because of the officers being there, I felt much safer, so my mom went back to work. The malls were getting less busy, so I didn't work as much, only about 2 days a week, so I spent a lot of time doing nothing but laying around and hanging out with my friends at home. For about another week, everything was normal. Nothing strange happened, and I was feeling better. My friend decided to come over for the weekend, as my parents were going to be out of town for a mini vacation, and I did not want to be home alone. We spent most of the time just watching movies and talking about life until the early hours of the morning. On the first night, everything went fine when we went to bed, but in the morning was when my life as I knew it was ripped away from me. On Sunday afternoon I woke up, rolled around a bit, and felt wetness on my body. I couldn't see anything because it was so dark in my room, even in the daytime, so I got up to turn the lights on. When I turned them on, I screamed louder than ever before. My whole body was covered in blood, and so was my bed. I quickly realized where it came from. My best friend's body lay there motionless next to me where I had been sleeping. She had been cut open, from the top of her stomach to her waist, with all of her internal organs peering out. She was dead, and in that moment, I wished I was dead too. I called the police, and between my crying, I was able to tell them what happened. They came quickly. They put caution tape around the house, and no one was allowed in, only police officers and forensics. My family and I had gone to stay with relatives until everything was figured out. I didn't know how to go on with my days or what to do. The sight of her body was stuck in my mind and it wasn't leaving. I just wanted to escape. 2 days after my best friend was murdered, I was called in to tell them what I knew. I was quickly told that I had been a suspect for who had killed her. They had found a knife stashed under my bed, and it had only her blood on it and my DNA. They asked me things like, did we fight? Did we have an argument? There was nothing that happened between me and her. It wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me, and I kept trying to tell them that it wasn't me, but they kept pushing it. An hour into questioning, a man came to the door and softly told me to come with him, and told the officer that was questioning me that I wouldn't have to continue this. I was scared. I didn't know what he wanted. He led me to another room and sat me down. I didn't think things could get any worse, but then he told me that they found my dad's dead body in his home. They found him hung from the ceiling, and they called it suicide. I was numb, alone, scared. I didn't know what to do anymore. There were no more tears to cry. There were no more screams to come out of my throat. There was nothing. I sat there in silence for what seemed like a lifetime. Another man came in and gave the man who had told me the news a piece of folded up paper and then whispered to him something that I didn't catch, and then quickly walked out. The man then told me that this was a note they had found in my dad's pocket, and it had my name on it, so no one looked at it because they thought it was only fair that I read it before anyone else. He handed me the note, and my hands shook. As soon as I looked at the folded up note, I knew something was off. Just the way my name was written was wrong. My dad had a very specific way of writing, and this was not it. I was hesitant to open it, but I did, and nothing could have prepared me for this. I told you I was going to get them. My best friend, and now my dad, were gone, so quickly and so under the radar. No one knows how these things had happened. Since I showed them the note, I'm no longer a suspect, and they have thrown this case into a top priority with no leads. They're working with very little. When they searched my dad's home, they found that someone had used a key to get in. They found the key on the porch that was by the front door. The man who did this must have stolen the key somehow and unlocked it to get in. Either way, I'm happy as I can possibly be during this time that they even found it, and that they can take this as a sign to kick up the search. They believe the man went through the trouble of getting a key so that initially it would look like he had killed himself. It's easy to believe because this man is clearly a sick fuck. After a few days of lying around my house with no energy to do anything, I received a package in the mail. It had 4 DVDs in it and a note that said, "Enjoy." I was hesitant to watch them, but I decided to go on and do it. The first one was me as a child with my dad, playing around and doing different things over the course of probably 10 years. I had assumed a family member sent this to me because of my dad's recent passing, but after the next video, I quickly realized it was not. The second video was a video of something I never thought I would see and could barely watch: the murder of my dad. The struggle he went through with the masked man, who ultimately pushed my dad off a chair with a rope around his neck. I vomited numerous times. I cried and pleaded that whoever was doing this to please stop, but I only felt alone and I knew that nothing I could do was going to stop this. I didn't want to watch the videos, but I felt like I had to. The third video was of me and my best friend, hanging out at my house, going to the mall, going to get food. Someone had been watching us and recording it. Because of the second video I watched, I was very uneasy to watch the last one. I knew it was going to be the murder of my best friend, but I had to watch it, and quickly knew my thoughts were right. I turned it off only after about 30 seconds. I couldn't go through with it. The days after I got the package, things were getting even worse. Not only was I completely torn, my family was now too, more than ever. We, as well as the police, were at a loss for what to do. We felt hopeless, as there wasn't anything we could do. We tried to live our lives as normally as we could. My mom and stepdad went back to work, and I went to work on the days that I was scheduled, and then laid around on the days I didn't work. I also had to come to terms with the fact that this man was no longer a murderer, but also a stalker. Adjusting to the fact that I no longer had my dad or my best friend of 4 years was hard. My mind couldn't grasp it. I spent a lot of time screaming and crying and pleading for the person that's doing this to just stop. When I wasn't doing that, I was just numb. I sat on my couch motionless, staring off into nothingness. My dad's funeral and my best friend's funeral were both on the same days. We wanted to get them over and done with, to try and get closure and move on as quickly as possible, but these funerals only made them worse. Not only were we saying our last goodbyes to a father, brother, son, uncle, and a daughter, sister, friend, I saw the man again, at both funerals. Well, not his face, of course, but his masked face. My dad's funeral was at a cemetery just outside of our town. During it, I looked up from the floor during a prayer to see the man a football field away. I wanted to run like I never had before, but my body couldn't move. I'd given up. I let him get away. 1 minute he was there, I looked away, and then back, and he was gone. My best friend's funeral was at a church. I spotted the man through the door like last time, but I couldn't do anything. I let him get away a second time. The days following their funeral were pretty uneventful. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. I just tried to spend as much time with my family and my boyfriend. I almost thought it was over. It was only about after a week that things started to quickly fall apart again. I started to receive letters in the mail every day with no return address. They each had a picture of me, doing normal things, eating, changing, hanging out with my friends and my boyfriend, and worst of all, sleeping. The other pictures were taken outside of my home, through windows and doors, but the sleeping photos were not quite the same. They were taken from inside of my bedroom. All I could do was give the police these pictures in the hopes that they would at least help in the smallest bit. I told myself that, but I knew it wasn't true. On a stormy, rainy day, me and my boyfriend decided to hang out. Me and him were both off work, but my mom and stepdad had to work, so I really didn't want to be alone with weather like this. He came over and we just watched movies. All was okay until the power went out because the storm was so bad. Well, at least that's what I told myself. I just started to cry. Every little thing that went wrong just stuck the blade deeper and deeper into my chest. We searched for the fuse box, and once we finally found it, we realized it was not the storm that knocked it out, but that all of the fuses were ripped out and nowhere to be found. My boyfriend tried to comfort me. He told me everything would be okay and that we would leave and go to his house. He lived about a half an hour away in a small town. It would have been nice, but once we tried to leave, that thought went away. As we finally found the door after stumbling through the house and down the stairs, we tried to open it, but it wouldn't. Assuming we just locked it, we unlocked it, only to find out that it wasn't locked from the inside. Something was locking it from the outside. I started to have a full-blown panic attack until I heard the TV in the basement come on. We went to go see what it was playing, as it was clearly not a normal TV show. What I was about to see next was something that made me wish I was dead. It was a live feed of the man, masked and all. He was just staring at the camera until a hospital bed rolled into frame with a body bag on it. I wanted to look away. Oh fuck, I wish I had, but I couldn't. The man slowly walked over to the bed and unzipped the body bag. The video cut to a different view. It was from above the bed. It was my mother. My mother was in the body bag, and she had tape around her mouth, and you could hear the screams. I screamed with her. We cried together. The man pulled out a knife that he drew from a holder on his pants. He effortlessly raised the blade and stabbed it into my mother's throat and dragged it back and forth, decapitating her. I winced and fell backwards. I had passed out. Once I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My boyfriend was beside me holding my hand. I asked him what had happened, and he told me that I passed out and I hit my head pretty hard. I didn't know what he was talking about, and that's when he told me my mother had passed away. I asked him how, but he told me not to worry about that right now. I wanted him to tell me, but I was just so tired that I couldn't argue. I just fell asleep. A doctor came in later once I was finally alone. He told me everything my boyfriend had, but he also told me I had lost certain parts of my memory, and that's why I didn't remember my mother dying. He told me it would come back, but he didn't know when. I wanted to know how, but everyone refused to tell me. I guess at the time, because I didn't have my memory, I didn't remember my parents and my friend had died. I guess they just thought it would be better for me not to know. After 2 days in the hospital, I got to leave. My boyfriend and I drove to his house, and that's where I stayed along with my stepdad. I guess after my mother's passing, we thought it would be best to all stay together, and my stepdad and my boyfriend's parents were super close, so it worked out well. Everyone thought I was going to be sad. They constantly asked me how I was doing and if I needed to get anything out, but because of losing my memory, I couldn't remember how she died. I was kind of just numb from the trauma that I'd been going through, and at the time, I obviously didn't remember. They all wanted me to go to therapy, so I did. I drove the 30-minute drive every week on my own to go see a therapist in the hospital. We just talked about how I was feeling, if I could remember anything now, but I didn't have much to say. I mostly told her I'd felt numb, and that I couldn't remember anything. I did this every week for a month until one cruel day. I had driven there, it was on my way back on our street when I saw it. The house that held my boyfriend and his family was engulfed with flames. In that moment, I remembered everything. My dad's passing, my best friend, the man, my mother's passing, everything. I raced down my street and practically threw myself out of my car. I was crying, begging to know if they were okay, but with one quick glance from the firefighters, I knew that they were gone. The days that were to follow were the worst days of my life. I stopped eating, working, going to therapy, talking to anyone, everything. I sat alone in my house. There was now only me. The strain between me and my stepdad was finally too much. We couldn't stand to be around each other. He left to go live with his relatives. He left me to rot, I guess. The days after were scary, but I didn't care. I sat in the same spot on my couch doing nothing. I would catch the man staring into my home a lot, but I didn't have the energy to do anything about it. This man had broken me. He had complete control over me. It was one night in November, 6 months after all of this started, that the weight was too much. I decided to write my suicide note. I had to go. It was hard to write it, as it normally would be, but it was harder for me knowing that there was nobody to even say goodbye to. Everyone that I had loved was gone. I grabbed all of the pills in my house and a bottle of whiskey. I sat down in the same spot on the couch for the last time. As I started to take them, I got a knock on the door. It was my stepdad. He came to spend some time with me. He told me he wanted to kill himself as well, and that's why he came to see me. He wanted to be there for me, and he needed somebody to be there for him because he didn't really want to die. He just felt like there was nothing left for him. Now me and my stepdad aren't very close to begin with. Even before all of this happened, we didn't get along very well. We disagreed and we argued a lot, so this meant a lot to me that he came to see me. I melted into his arms, and we cried together for a very long time, until the moment that we realized he was watching us through the door. The masked man was there, staring at us. I screamed and went to lock the door, but it was no use. He kicked the door down. My stepdad and I ran to the back and tried to get out of the back door. There was a forest just a couple houses over that we were going to run into to try to get away. As we were running and almost there, that's when I heard it. The ringing deafened me. I didn't know what it was until I turned around. My stepdad lied there on the ground. The man had shot him. He was dead. I didn't know what to do anymore, so I just collapsed onto the ground. I wanted this man to take me out of my misery, but he had other plans. He walked up to me and said nothing. He pulled out a camera and took a picture of me. This sick fuck took a picture of me. right after my stepfather was killed. I asked him what he wanted, over and over again, until I was screaming, but he just stared at me. I wanted to hurt him so bad. I wanted him to feel the hurt that I was feeling. I got up and pushed him. I hit him, did everything I could to try and hurt him, but it wasn't making anything better, so I gave up. I turned around to walk away, and that's when he hit me over the head with his gun. I blacked out. Once I finally woke up, I realized I was in a room that I did not recognize, sitting on a chair in the middle of the room. There was a knock on the door, and the masked man came in, and as he closed the door and walked towards me, he took the mask off. I finally knew who he was. I screamed and cried and told him to leave me alone, but all he said was, "We can finally be together now, alone." And those are the first 2 parts. I think she might add more to the story. I really hope that she does. Oh my god, but my voice keeps going in and out. I think it's because it's so late. I just don't think I can record stories late at night because my voice just gives up on me. I wanted to apologize for all of these stories being a little bit shorter. I know they're like 10 minutes and a little bit over, but I feel bad because none of them have been that long. I'm actually pre-recording right now. I have about 10 videos pre-recorded for when my friends come to visit because I like to be a week ahead of time, so then like for my friends coming to visit, I have a lot of videos that I have to film. But I hope that this is okay. But after they're gone and after everything's settled, I'm gonna go back to normal story. Well, not normal stories because these are normal stories, but like longer stories. Okay, whatever. I hope you guys enjoy seeing the next one. I ramble a lot. Bye. My voice is so raspy that I cannot take it anymore.